So it's wonderful to see everybody. A very warm welcome, everyone, to the third and final session of the Tao of Democracy and Beyond, a gathering of hearts and minds. So, as I said, this is the last of three gatherings, which we designed to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the publication of the book, The Tao of Democracy, which was written by Tom Atlee, present with us tonight, and Rosa Zubizarreta, present with us tonight, back in 2003, and which has inspired so many to reflect, imagine, and enact new, collectively wise ways of doing democracy and governance. So we at the Collective Intelligence Institute felt this year would be an important year to look back and celebrate this and other significant CII milestones, such as the Storyfield Conference, which took place in 2007, the Phoenix Conversations, gatherings which took place in 2008, and the creation of the Wise Democracy Pattern Language, which was 6 years ago in 2017. But most of all, we really want to celebrate and gather with fellow travelers on the journey, which is why we've sent out this invitation to CII friends old and new. So these sessions have been an opportunity for people to connect with each other and reconnect with CII as an extended community around some of our core themes and inquiries. And we've been looking at different themes throughout each of these different sessions. And this evening, the theme we're going to be exploring is appreciating the evolutionary edge. And our calling questions for this evening, or morning or afternoon, wherever you are what social innovations have been calling to you these days? And what evolutionary experiments in healing and transformation have been inspiring you? So thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. We're delighted to see you all. And I'm going to hand over now to Rosa to give a brief welcome and introduction to our topic. Over to you, Rosa.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you. And again, welcome, everyone. So happy to see you and to be here with you. So this part of the framing is a lead up to our check-in. We're going to be doing check-ins in small groups in a moment. But I want to say a little bit about evolutionary edges, which is our theme for the today. And I want to say that evolutionary edges are delightful. And at the same time, I want to put them in the context of a larger whole. Maybe evolutionary edges are like the green shoots that were so exciting to see poking up above the ground, but that depend on the root structures that we tend to not see that are growing first beneath the ground, right? And maybe our ability to engage creatively with change is strengthened by those elements that give us inner stability and continuity, as well as those elements externally that give us stability and continuity, like the ground beneath our feet, right? Clean air to breathe and clean water to drink. So for our framing today, I want to start with a brief moment to honor the continuity of memory. That's a way that we humans create a sense of continuity. And there are three good friends of CII and different ones of us here who have recently transitioned. And I just want to take a moment to honor their memory. There's Anne Dosher, heartfelt storyteller extraordinaire and one of the initiators and catalysts of the open space movement, along with Harrison Owen. She transitioned recently. There's Halim Dunsky, good friend and conspirer in the exploration of deep embodied presence, among other things. And then there's Michael Dowd, impassioned evangelist of evolutionary spirituality, who did this work with his partner, Connie Barlow, who is still with us. And so I want to take a moment and just invite each of us to make a gesture into the space if your life was touched by any of these people. I'll just say their names again briefly. And, you know, even if you just heard about them or were inspired by them or whatever, and if you would like to make a gesture. And I see a heart there. So Ann Dosher. Helene Dunsky. And Michael Dowd. Thank you all so much. Each of these have been radiant beings who shared the light of their unique being with others. And we're going to be inviting each of you to do that in the check-in. So in preparation for that, I want to take a few minutes to invite us into an inner exploration of this polarity that I mentioned a moment ago, of continuity and change. So I'm going to be giving a voice again to our calling questions, and then we'll just take a moment of silence after I finish speaking. So the two questions are, what social innovations have been calling to you these days? And what evolutionary experiments in healing and transformation have been inspiring you? Andy's going to put those into the chat in a moment. And also, if when we go into the silence, nothing in particular comes to mind right now, I also want to invite you to contemplate the question of what offers you continuity and stability in your life? And or what values do you choose to keep constant? Andy's putting those in chat too. Thank you, Andy. And of course, this is just an invitation. When we go inside into the silence, you are welcome to honor and explore whatever it is that comes to you in this next moment. And Natalia, I don't know if you have handy your bell that you can lead us into the silence and then in a little while bring us back out. That would be lovely. Sure. Okay, so now we're going to be going into breakout rooms. And when we go into the breakout rooms, you may be in a group of 3, or you may be in a few of you may be in a group of 2, and we'll have 10 minutes in all. So it'll be about 3 minutes per person. And you can share whatever you would like in your check-in. If you'd like, you can share some of what just came for you in your inner exploration. So I am opening all the rooms. And welcome back, everyone. Welcome, welcome. I hope you enjoyed your check-ins. I'd love to just see, thumbs up, thumbs sideways, thumbs down. How was that? Okay, I'm seeing some thumbs. Yay, 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 yay. And we had Elaine. Alon joined us while we were in break, and we're just having Ying join us now. So Alon, welcome, and Ying, welcome.
Apologies for being late.
So we are about to go into the next part. I mean, unless anybody wants to share something from your breakout group right now, we're about to go into the next part where we're going to hear a brief presentation from, oh my God, where's Andy? I'm not seeing him.
I'm here.
There you are.
I'm with you.
A brief presentation from Andy on this topic of evolutionary edge and what's catching his interest with regard to that, followed by a brief presentation from Tom, followed by some comments from Natalia, after which we will have our whole group conversation, which we will either be doing as a whole group or we will be doing in terms of Jerry, welcome. You're right on time here.
So, oh my God, I'm so sorry for being late. So I'm glad I'm on time. And I apologize for having missed the previous calls. I really wanted to be here.
Oh,
nice to see everybody.
Welcome. And so we're about to have some short presentations. We just got back from check-in groups. And yeah, and then we'll have more conversation. So over to you, Andy.
Thank you, Rosa. I'm going to share a little slide presentation that I made earlier today. Let's see if this works. Does that show up for everybody okay? Fantastic. Yep. So, in this topic of appreciating the evolutionary edge, I wanted to talk about evolving democracy. I've done a fair amount of work recently in the UK in citizens' assemblies. And I'd love to share some things that I feel are really important in sort of pushing the boundaries of democracy even further and making it more inclusive and wiser. So, first of all, I just want to put this in the context of what we do here at CII, looking into co-intelligence and what we call the Prime Directive. So co-intelligence is this question of what would intelligence look like if we took wholeness, interconnectedness, and co-creativity seriously. And the Prime Directive is all about appreciating, evoking, and engaging the wisdom and resourcefulness of the whole on behalf of the whole. And we see that really taking the whole, a holistic approach is necessary if we want to confront and the challenges of our times and have a future that is about not just surviving, but thriving. So, this slide here is all about the necessity for us to make a shift from this sort of ego paradigm to this ego paradigm, where we realize that we are part of a bigger living system rather than trying to be dominators of nature and of each other, you know, systems of oppression and everything that we're kind of living in terms of our system at the moment. So a realization is dawning that if we don't take wholeness, interconnected, and co-creativity seriously, that in fact will be self-terminating. And so we've had these systems of democracy that have evolved over time. So once upon a time, democracy was the preserve of the landed classes alone. And now we've increased representation, you know, different classes of people have been involved in the democratic process. 100 years ago, so many countries, there was not even, we didn't have votes for women. So there is an evolutionary sort of thrust, I guess, to democracy. But I think we need to really expand that beyond what we have now and expand our notions, even what a person is, and how different voices get represented, not just as for legitimacy, but as actually as a necessity for representing diversity and having wise outcomes. So I want to talk about two things, including the voices of future generations in democracy, and including the voices of more than human world. So these are really evolutionary edge things that are just emerging now. And there are a few sort of case studies that I want to very briefly present. So the first is something called future design in Japan. Future design is a movement that is about overcoming short-termism. It draws on the traditional Japanese culture, and it's inspired by the principle of seventh generation decision making. And it's about strengthening intergenerational justice. It was developed by an economist called Tatsuyoshi Saijo. And it's a form of citizen participation that's been used all over Japan now. One of the famous examples was in the town of Yahaba. And basically what they do is they divide participants into two groups. One speaks and presents from the future, and the other group speaks from the present about an issue. And the people that represent future generations, they put on these ceremonial robes that you can see here in this picture. And facilitators found that when participants assumed the roles of future generations, they felt more empathy for the realities of future generations, which made them advocate for more radical and effective solutions. For example, in Yahaba, they discussed water utility, which was actually profitable at the time. And the groups representing the interests of the current generation argued for returning surplus profits to residents by reducing water charges. But the ones representing future generations argue for increasing water charges, stressing importance of a need to accumulate funds for future investment. And that actually allowed the town of Yahaba actually to increase its water rates. This is another project which is taking place in my hometown of London, in one of the boroughs. Camden Council has become the first local authority to offer imagination activist training to its staff. And it's 32 people have been trained to become sort of ambassadors for imagining what the future might be. And they have been invited to inhabit and think about what future generations need that we just discussed, what are the needs of the more than human world, and looking from historical perspective as well of ancestors. And they are trained to be ambassadors that then go out into the community and into all of the different positions within the borough, and actually to change the culture so that it's not just sort of very linear thinking, but to actually infuse this sense of imagination. And it's a project that's just started. It's been very successful in sort of creating a lot of enthusiasm, but it's absolutely embraced from top down, right from the leader of the council into all the different departments. So that's something to watch. You can have a look at that there at the Camden Imagines website. And the last example here is something that is about bringing the voice of the more than human world. And in this example here, it talks about diversity is in the interest of all life. Therefore, direct political representation of the sea and the life within it is necessary. The Embassy of the North Sea was founded on the principle that the North Sea owns itself. Here, the voices of plants, animals, microbes, and the people in and around the North Sea are listened to and involved. So this is a project that's taken place in 3 stages. 4 years of listening has taken place, in which people, scientists, authors, marine biologists, policymakers actually went out. They listened to the sea. They did all kinds of embodied activities that really tried to get them as close as possible to the world and the inhabitants of the North Sea. They looked deeply at what was happening to the eels, underwater noise, the future of the delta. And then the next stage is all about speaking, advocating, and the last stage is about actually taking that out into political sphere, negotiating, inspired by some of the recent examples, such as in New Zealand, where they granted legal personhood to a river, and that other nations have followed suit. So bringing a sort of legal personhood and recognition to the sea and its inhabitants. So there's a sort of whole movement here that is just beginning to sort of bring to life the voice of the more than human world. So these are just a few examples. There's the website here. We'll be sharing this resource afterwards. But these are some things that I felt particularly inspired by. So I'm going to hand over now to Tom.
Thank you, Andy. And Tom, just before you start, I want to say that Andy has been mentioning that all of these resources will be made available. One of the places they'll be made available is in the shared Google Doc that we create after each one of these. And so those of you who have wanted to come to previous ones, it has the link to our harvest document from the previous ones as well. The harvest document from last time is not fully complete yet. We still plan on putting a link there to the notes. But there's a lot of resources from last time and from the first time as well. So thanks so much, Andy. That was super inspiring. Tom, please.
Yeah. When I thought about inspiring innovations, I began to, a lot of stuff surfaced that was all around one pattern, which I'm putting a link in, which is multiple perspective view. I was quite surprised that it sort of started tumbling out like that. And the first one was, there's another pattern that's related called inclusive stakeholder governance. And it's the idea of getting a full spectrum of the people involved or impacted by an issue domain, like education, land use, healthcare, stuff like that. And helping them discover ways to improve how they collectively work in that domain. And that activity, it turns out, is happening all over the world with various levels of effectiveness and equity between them. But we have a friend particularly who's been consulting for about a decade with all the different players in food systems in Appalachia. And she wrote a blog post shortly after she took a Wise Democracy course, saying she's recognizing that this is a new form of governance. It includes like government regulators who are dealing with food, but it also includes the farmers, includes the retailers, the grocery stores and farmers markets and transportation people and seed suppliers and whatever. All these different players in the food system have been coming together more and more and talking about what's going on and what they should do about it. And it's like the whole system is evolving itself. And I find that fascinating. And the fact that there are multiple perspectives being used in interesting ways and generating shared perspectives to work together on. I'm going to put two other patterns in. Two other patterns that are, which is the stakeholder governance is the one that is overall defining this, inclusive stakeholder governance. And the other one is generating shared orientation. So that's all an application of the multiples perspective view pattern, which is holding different views all together in some way that you can actually work with them. The next one I want to do, its pattern is the pattern that's associated with it is full spectrum information. I do think in terms of these patterns a lot. And there's two variations I wanted to share on that. The multiple perspective view pattern has a woman, Anna Dwyer-Smith, who is an actress, and she created a new form of drama. I call it multiple viewpoint drama. I don't think she actually has a name for it, but a one-woman show. Her first two versions of this, there were two riots that she did shows on. One was the Rodney King riots called Twilight Los Angeles. It's her presentation, and one was Crown Heights between blacks and Jews. And oh yeah, that's Anna Devere Smith. And she interviews for each of these riots. She interviews 100-person people about before, and then picks specific people to act out their role, their place, and talk. She says the things that they said. There's nothing that she creates except the design of it. And you end up with this amazing perspective on a riot. You know, here's a community organizer, here's a rioter, here's a shopkeeper, public official, whatever. You see all these different perspectives. And the other thing that I wanted to do, it's funny in a similar way. It's not drama, but it's Nora Bateson. It's Gregory Bateson's daughter, famous systems thinking developer. And she's come up with what she calls warm data labs. And data that is cold is out of context. And data that is warm is in many contexts. She coined the term transcontextuality. And I participated in an early version of Warm Data Lab, and it was looking at addiction. And there were little signs posted around the room with chairs around them. Here's one on family, another on science, another on policy, public safety, chemistry, psychology, and if you're interested in looking at addiction through a particular lens, you go over and talk to whoever happens to be sitting there. And when you're done there, you can go to any other one you want. And after 3 or 4 of them, you go, whoa, you can't really understand addiction unless you actually are doing the dance between these different perspectives. I'm interested in starting to weave warm data labs into citizen deliberations and having the deliberators begin looking at things like that. So you have one as a form of drama, one as a form of reflection, but they both are doing this full spectrum information from getting the different perspectives that are going on. And the last one I want to deal with, which has my favorite of all the patterns, is called Using Diversity and Disturbance Creatively. Oh, wait, it's been 9 minutes already. Oh no.
It's okay, just giving you a time check.
I've been timing it and I thought I was within time.
No, go on.
I'll try and cover this quickly. Yeah, there's a new thing coming up that's called plurality, and the new pluralists, and they're promoting the value of a society that's filled with diverse viewpoints, activities, approaches. Rather than the society that's trying to be all one, you are trying to have lots of different things going on, and having ways to help nurturing that by helping people understand and collaborate across differences. And that our Mashbean, who was a speaker at one of a recent guy from Taiwan, is talking about in their work in Taiwan, the digital work, they're trying to help create forums and methods online and through computers to help people work together, specifically to help nurture that kind of society. Check. Multiples perspective view. 3 cheers.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tom. So that's, again, we'll have all of these on the document. There's the pattern language cards, and then there's the projects in what we call real world co-intelligence that are embodying these various patterns and archetypes, right? So thank you so much. Natalia.
Yeah, thanks everyone so much. I just want to first sort of like reflect on and second a lot of what Andy and Tom shared. Andy highlighting the sort of evolutionary natural movement of democracy to expand and increase our participation, and who gets to be and what gets to be included. And who gets a voice, and how groups are really continuing to move that edge, that circle wider and wider, including Future Design in Japan, Camden Imagines, Embassy of the North Sea, where they're really attending to the more than human world and also future generations, and drawing on, the wisdom of our ancestors. And I absolutely am so inspired by that. Particularly, I think close to my heart is the ways in which we are giving voice to and starting to acknowledge and honor the non-human beings in the non-human world that we are a part of, and that we actually have a role in attending to, and co-creating. So it's not just about us humans sort of extracting and using these resources, but being part of the ecosystems and our home. And I also am so, I want to reflect on Tom's shares where, he's appreciating seeing all these patterns that really kind of help to bring to life or embody this multiple perspective view, with inclusive stakeholder governance that includes a more full spectrum of people that are impacted by an issue, allowing us to improve how we're collectively understanding and working together in those particular areas. And bringing these patterns into our arts and our drama. So helping, using or bringing arts to help raise our consciousness and our awareness and understanding, to better understand diversity, and to better hold the diversity that is all around us, and approach diversity from a different perspective, rather than being something that we want to change or contain or unify, but really appreciating it and allowing it to serve its important role in, creative role in our lives and in our experience. And I'm just going to add to that I think my center of, what I've really been inspired by recently is just the general raising and transformation of consciousness that I see unfolding around the world. And especially, I think I'm inspired by seeing that in younger people. With high school students and college students, and even fellow millennials like myself that are arriving with so much personal awareness and openness, and so articulate in expressing their experience and their emotions, and that we're really creating a space that encourages young people to, instead of repressing or stuffing things away, to really be vocal, and also to champion each other. To hear and listen and acknowledge other people's needs and wants and boundaries, and not just for humans, but for our climate, for our planet, for other beings that we share the earth with. I was saying this in the check-in, but I facilitate a practice called social meditation, where it's really a practice for bringing meditative awareness and meditative presence to how we socialize and how we engage with each other and with the world. And I'm constantly amazed and inspired by the young people who are not only just interested in actually joining, but who are so wise and articulate and aware. So I'm very inspired by that. I feel like we are moving, even with all the challenges that we're facing, there is this movement towards collaboration, towards deepening our understanding, towards, moving into more heart wisdom, the rising and rebalancing of like our feminine and masculine energies, this polarity, and really honoring for all of us getting to bring that forward. I'll end there, Rosa. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm inspired by your appreciation of youth and the possibilities for bringing things forward, even in the midst of all the challenges that we're facing. Yeah. Okay. So the reason we've been kind of trying to have a timed process here of not going on too long is because we really want to hear from all of you. We want to hear what is inspiring you these days. Also, questions, comments, etc., that you may have in terms of what Andy shared, what Tom shared, what Natalia shared. I just put in the link to the Google Doc in the chat. It doesn't have those resources yet, but it will, including all of the wonderful links. Jerry, you've been posting some wonderful links in the chat to Anna DeVere Smith, to Nora Bateson's Warm Data Labs, etc. We are going to be harvesting and collecting these. And as I mentioned, this harvest document also has links to the other 2 harvest documents at the first 2 sessions of the call. So with that, Andy, do you have your mural ready where you're going to be taking notes of our conversation?
Yep, I'm putting it up right now.
You don't have to, sure. Oh. Great. So everybody can see it. Appreciating the evolutionary edge.
I can take it down if it gets too much.
Yeah. So also everybody who's watching, you have a little thing on the middle of your screen where you can make the people larger or make the screen share larger, so you have total control about being able to determine your own view of this. But yeah, we were curious about your insights, reflections, comments, questions, and one of the things that's still open at this point is whether it makes sense to have all of us stay together as one group, and we can determine this as we go, or whether it makes sense to do a bit of open space topic groups the way that we did the first session of this triad, right? So if somebody has a real strong leaning or real strong calling, or maybe an offering. I know that we were talking earlier with Alain about the work that he's doing. We're totally welcome the possibility of having smaller breakout groups. And we can also do those, unlike the check-in where I was distributing you all into different groups. We now have a feature on Zoom where you can take yourself to the different groups, and so kind of drop in and out of different groups as you would like. So with that, those possibilities, I want to open the floor to whatever is stirring for you.
I would like to see the group stay together, and that's partly because this is the first time I'm part of this group, and I'm really envisioning myself a worldwide transformation movement to what I call the new stock market. STALK is the leftover industrial waste of the hemp plant. People in England saw that people in France were building houses with this leftover hemp stocks, and they started building. But there's 35 countries for 35 years have been building with hemp. And this is so important worldwide because of the fires that are raging, and the global warming is probably not going to stop. So I'm really hoping that people will catch this wave and join this movement of what I call the International Industrial Hemp Skills, Services, and Tools Network. And I started the Community Skills Bank in Southern Oregon that lasted about 8.5 years that helped kickstart the whole Back to the Land movement there. Second, I just want to say the use of technology by wireless, access is decimating birds, bees, and humanity. If you put destroying nature with electrosmog by a guy named Ulrich from the Netherlands, we really need to mitigate our use of wireless technology. I use my cell phone about 10 hours a year, although I'm a realtor. I made that financial sacrifice, and I hope all of us look at our use of wireless technology more closely. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. I want to appreciate the information that you shared, and also invite you to please put links into the chat and also links into the shared Google Doc. so that other people can have access to that. Thank you so much, Kathy. Would anyone else like to make an offering?
I'm seeing James' hand raised.
Yeah, James. Yeah.
Thanks. When this session started, I was remembering what I felt when I first read the Tao of Democracy. It sort of opened new doors for me, and I think that its best effect on me has been to create an awareness that there are new ways of thinking that are possible. So when people ask me about, what projects are exciting me these days, there are lots of projects that excite me, but I think one of the reasons the projects are exciting is because they link to new ways of thinking and imagining. So I'm really grateful to Tom for that. And the other thing I think I love about the book is that Tom mentions the need to retain a sense of mystery, of being on the edge of knowing. And I think that's really nourishing and useful. So thank you, Tom.
Thank you so much, James, for your thoughtful appreciation and comments of the book and what it meant to you and means to you. One thing I wrote down is that it's not just the projects, it's the new ways of thinking and envisioning the world that makes projects meaningful for you. Thank you. Yes, Lynn.
As I was listening to Andy, Tom, and Natalia, I drew a little diagram on my page. On the left are the ancestors right now and future generations. And I'm working a lot with elders at this time, and I'm also part of a just starting project on transforming U.S. education or education in the U.S. And the notion that elders can play an important role in connection or in relationship with younger generations, especially people who are still at school, is for me part of that and broadening the democracy movement that you have evoked. That the ability to be both grounded in some of the most successful experiments of for instance, the indigenous culture and the being with nature, being one with nature, and also and at the same time being able to use one's imagination, which I think young people are usually better at, not only by looking at what is in the future. So I just wanted to share that little diagram that for me, given my own engagement at this time, that a lot rests on elders who have been somewhat marginalized in our society or marginalized themselves, to actually activate some capacity to both be aware of some of the most not just thoughtful but vital experiments that have been done in previous cultures, and at the same time to be looking forward. And I think it's probably easier for elders to look, several generations beyond them, because they know they don't have that much to live themselves. So I just wanted to offer that thought as a point for me of seeing where my own passion at this time fits into what we are examining here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. The work that you're doing with elders and honoring our ancestral indigenous knowledge and wisdom, and finding ways to create vibrant futures is very inspiring. I want to really invite you to please, again, share any links, any information to the work that you're doing so that people can find out more. Jerry.
Thanks, Rosa. And I've missed earlier calls. I'm sort of dropping in here, and I'm just off a really fascinating call that ran over, which is why I was late here, that involved like the melting of the world, etc. So if what I say rubs a little wrong, I apologize in advance. But I just want to sort of state the way Alain just said, what brings me here and what I'm passionate about that touches this subject. So one thing is, I fear that we are past peak democracy. I fear that democracy itself is being actively undermined very effectively around the world. We just saw a couple elections swing really bad ways towards autocratic rule, and all kinds of things are happening that are active threats that worry me all the time. I'm not sure that if you put 5 people in a room and ask them what democracy is, that they come up with anything like the same answer. I think democracy is one of these squishy words like trust or, there's a bunch of these things we throw around that we don't really agree on. And I think that governance needs to be rethought and reinvented. I have a little riff about large G government versus small G governance. And I'm really interested in governance, in particular self-governance toward, Lynn Ostrom style commons management, other sorts of things like that. So I wonder, and this room feels like a very warm and inviting, like-minded room. And I wonder what would happen if a MAGA person were to drop in and be part of this conversation, and how that would go. And I'm really interested in that. I kind of want that. I want to be in places where there's more disagreement and more sort of ferocity about how we make decisions together. I'm really I care about that. And I fear that I'm in too many circles of like-mindedness where we don't sort of face some of those kinds of things. Then
Jerry?
Yes.
I'd love to hear more, and I would love to reflect back what I've heard so far so that we
Please.
can all digest it and so that you can continue, if I may. Yeah?
Please do.
So I'd like to start with what you said at the end there, which is that part of you really, really longs to be in places where differences, vast differences across political beliefs are intentionally brought together, and that you are sensing this as a fairly like-minded group. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
And before that, you started with talking about how you are very concerned because you feel like there is a rising authoritarianism in the world, and you're concerned that we have very different ideas about what democracy is, and that our forms of governance with a small g need to be reinvented. Is that close?
That is better than the AIs could have summarized.
Yeah, we've got some stiff competition these days. Cool. So I have some things I want to respond to that, but first I want to invite you to say more because I did pause you when you were in the middle of a rolling stream. So please continue.
Thank you very much for that. I really appreciate that. The other half of what I wanted to say is about memory and making things more actionable. I'll try to say it quickly. When you shared the Google Doc where the notes from this call will go in, my heart sinks a little bit because Google Docs are just such a terrible way to actually share information. And one of the bees in my bonnet is how to create a shared intelligence, a shared memory, a collective intelligence for humans. And connected to that is one of my side projects that I don't appear to have enough time to do is to take the various really wonderful pattern languages that already exist, Wise Democracy, Pedagogy, Liberating Structures, there's a couple others that are very well done pattern languages, interconnect them into a meta pattern language, but then instrument them. And I'll use a pattern from Liberating Structures to give you the example. There's a pattern called 1, 2, 4, all that you're probably very familiar with. When you have a difficult problem in a big group, give them time by themselves, put them in pairs, put them in fours, come back to plenary. Awesome. There could be a Zoom aide that knows about facilitation that says, hey, Jerry, you might want to use 1, 2, 4, all now. And I'd be like, what's that? It would tell me, and then I'd be like, yes. And then I would press go, and it would set up breakout rooms, give them names, assign people, put prompts in the chat, set up timers, do all of the choreography that's hard for a facilitator to do. And that's what I mean by instrumenting a pattern. And a pattern is distilled wisdom. And I suspect that 10 to 30% of patterns in these pattern languages I just mentioned are instrumentable, which means they would be available not just as a couple pages on a wiki or a softbound book that somebody has to know about, read, and digest, but they would actually be actively at their fingertips as they walk around the world. And I'm really interested in that. In how do we take this distilled wisdom and make it extremely more accessible, but even more actionable? And that's all I got.
Thank you. So I'd like to reflect that, if I may, please. Just starting again with the ending, how to make all these pattern languages not just accessible, but actionable through having computerized support for implementing in a group context the patterns or the activities that would allow us to embody those wonderful patterns. And thank you so much for updating us on some of the work that you are doing and that calls to you. Really appreciate that. And I know that other people here appreciate it too, and are going to want to be in touch with you, and they're going to want to connect, which brings me to, that's one of the things that we are really wanting to do here, is not just enjoy your company, but allow each of you to connect with one another. Yeah. And so in past calls, we have invited people who want to put their emails in the chat, who want to share their emails with others, or you can back channel, right? You can send a private message to somebody who you just heard speak, give them your email, ask them for theirs, etc. So with that, I would like to build a little bit on some of the things that you said before going on to the next person, if that would be okay. Cool. So here's the thing, we're doing what we can with the very limited budgets that we have. And so from our perspective, Google Docs is definitely not ideal, but it's definitely better than not having any notes at all, right? And I do want to take a moment and share screen, because I really want to appreciate the thing that you started out at the beginning, which was our concerns. What is concerning us about the world right now? In fact, we invited everybody who, when we first announced this series of 3 meetings, to send us their input about what are your concerns. I'm about to share this screen right now. Oops, that's not, I actually want the link here. That's the mural, but here's the link, and hopefully this will share in a moment. So this is a mural that we created with all of your responses. And the link to this is in each of the Google Docs for each of the 3 meetings. And you'll get to see it in a moment. But basically, the first question was, what are your concerns right now? And there were some pretty intense responses. And so the first of these sessions was on the meta crisis, right? Tom has been doing a lot of skunk works, which is our internal term for research and development, on things having to do with the meta crisis. And so here we go. We have a view only session and the view only copy. And then we also have another copy that you all are welcome to play with. And so we started out with responses to what concerns you most? Extinction, climate crisis, climate catastrophe, climate change and impacts on political, economic, and social justice, polarization, keeping our country democratic, losing our democracy, saving our democracy, the undermining trust in humans and how to rebuild it. And one of my favorites, maintaining my sanity and my ability to keep an open heart. And then these went to, this is another question we asked, what keeps you going? People responded, life and the beauty of the world, faith in life and in people, friends and family, being in partnership with the non-human world, staying connected with myself. These are a bunch of responses that we got before we even started these, and they all go to the what is most alive for you. And we got some incredible responses. People are taking this work more generally, right? We're not the only ones who are working on collective intelligence and wisdom and all that kind of stuff, but people are taking whatever inspiration they find here and applying it to the workshops that they run, to the groups that they're working on, activist groups, spiritual groups. People are writing books. People are exploring all kinds of things that help keep them alive and interested and engaged in the world, even in the midst of all the challenges that we have right now. So yes, your concerns are most welcome here, Jerry, because we can't have a live, holistic process if we're not able to share our serious concerns about the state of the world right now. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Rosa. Really appreciate it.
Tom, yes.
Yeah, I'd like to note that there's a lot of different voices that exist in society now, but they are not held and facilitated, whatever, in ways that generate creative, emergent, positive outcomes. So my sense of where the greatest wisdom lies is in the combination of maximizing diversity, the different kinds of diversity depending on what it is that you're trying to do, and having process support, context, whatever, that gives a good likelihood of that diversity ending up being mutually contributive rather than mutually destructive and interruptive. That's one of the reasons I love dynamic facilitation. That's a particular methodology that I have seen most powerful in dealing with extreme differences, not to resolve the differences, but to use them in a way that the group as a whole ends up sort of absorbing all those differences and taking it from there to do some really creative work on it. I think there's lots of processes that will help contain and use creatively diversity, but I don't value diversity for itself because it can mutually self-destruct the system that all the different parts are part of unless the context is there. It's like somebody coming in here, MAGA coming in here would basically interrupt whatever this group could do. It's not designed to contain that kind of diversity, but there are lots of groups that have been done that are designed to contain that kind of diversity and do welcome such people, from not just such people who are MAGAs, but people who are all kinds of people, and actually consciously try to do that as part of the setting up of the group. Check.
Thanks so much, Tom. Charles has raised his hand, and I just want to reflect one little bit of what you said, Tom. I had meant to share this in my previous response to Jerry, was just that I think that we need different kinds of groups. And I think that we need the ability to come together in fairly like-minded groups and inspire each other. And we also need the ability to have groups where major differences are coming. And the other thing I want to say is that we need bridge building groups like within the Democrats, not just between the Democrats and the Republicans, right? It's like any group will then have a lot of divisions and misunderstandings within it that need to be bridged. So at all levels of scale, we need to be able to do bridge building.
Within the family.
yeah. Over to you, Charlie. And I apologize. I don't know if you're still going by Charlie. That is what you used to want me to call you.
That works.
Okay.
Charlie. Thanks everyone, and I'm just really glad to be here. And so I have a couple of things to bring in, and I'll try to be efficient. And it's a bit of a riff and a bit of maybe two-part question for Tom in particular, just to pick up on what you were just sharing. And also what you brought in earlier in passing's reference to a colleague in Appalachia. I'm guessing that's Laura Rigel. But you were kind of pointing to something that you that seemed to be also what you came back to just now in regard to the voices not being heard, or how to support this diversity and so on. So part of my question is maybe to go into that slightly further, maybe to snapshot a little more about what that was. Earlier you phrased it as the whole system is evolving itself. I wrote this down, and it's really fascinating to me. And then I mentioned to a couple of us in the breakout a couple of things that I'm working on that are inspiring, and I'll just kind of name a couple of things. One is an emerging coalition that is called the World Wise Web. And so I can certainly share more about all that. But the context of what I want to ask you comes out of this. And there was a new sort of updated definition of wisdom that was proposed that relates to this phrase that you mentioned earlier about the whole system evolving itself. And so I wanted to run this past you, and that it's quite short. It's right relationship between part and whole, that both may evolve. So I'm wondering how that lands with you in particular, or anyone, and then anything further about Appalachia. Thanks. Check.
I love it. Yes, I think it's a bit theoretical, but I like theory, so I like that image. The person I'm thinking of is Tracy Kunkler, and she's a consultant in Appalachia, specifically with food systems, and was one of the inspirations for the idea of multi-stakeholder, multi-sector, multi-scale networks collaborating in a particular issue domain, which was an inspiration for a group that we had going for about 5 or 6 months years ago called the Emerging Network Governance Initiative. And we found that there's hundreds of these things happening all over the world. And the Sustainable Development Goals at the UN each have that kind of thing showing up. The land use, watershed management, all these things. There's lots of different things, manifestations of that dynamic going on. And I can send you some references on it if you want. Check.
Thank you.
I highlight as well, Dana has put into the I see you've responded to it, Rosa, about what dynamic facilitation is. Maybe there are others who are not aware of what dynamic facilitation is.
So, Charles, did that respond to your question about who Tom was referring to in Appalachia? Cool, awesome.
For sure.
So,
I'd love to refer to her work in the MS3 stuff as well. So thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to type in this the definition of wisdom that I mentioned. It's from Lawrence Curry Clark. I'll credit him, but
I wanted to say thank you. I thought that was a very evocative definition of wisdom, and the kind of things that we like to collect and share and amplify. Absolutely.
I want to know the thing that I put into the chat about dynamic facilitation was basically, it's a blog post of mine, but it's basically Rosa talking about what's special about dynamic facilitation, what makes it work in its unique way. Check.
Yeah, it's interesting, Tom. As much as I love dynamic facilitation, I find myself moving more and more to feeling like any process that makes sure that everybody has a chance to speak is a huge improvement over what we have right now, right? And there's lots of ways to do it, and this kind of has to do with something that Natalia said recently about realizing that being at the evolving edge of the evolving edge can be kind of hard sometimes. So I just I have these days just kind of, I'm choosing to make a stand for the value of facilitation in general, whatever flavor it may be, because it seems like just a really basic first step. And as we get into it, and we become process geeks and all that kind of stuff, then we can definitely get into more advanced conversations. But yeah, this is very analogous to Jerry's saying that, Google Docs is just not so functional. And it's like, yeah. And it's better than not having anything. So, Charles, wisdom equal right relationship between part and whole that both may evolve. Lawrence Curry Clark, weco.io. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's We Collective. It's a platform that anyone's invited there. It's kind of pre-launch, but it's fully functional social network. But we're collaborating with them. We being a sort of group of groups. So. Inspired by Tom's definition of wisdom, I must add.
Taking into account what needs to be taken into account for long-term broad benefit. That's my original definition of wisdom. But I wanted to note also it's speaking to some of the things Jerry was wondering. I posted a link to my study of a thing that Maclean's magazine in Canada did in 1991, which is a kind of archetypal version of what you're talking about, Jerry, and my response, where they picked 12 people to represent the diversity of Canada. They were people who were picked for their differences. And then they were given 2.5 days to come up with a vision for Canada. And they got Roger Fisher, who's a co-author of Getting TS and a major negotiation person. And he sort of did the work and sort of didn't. The group kind of took over at one point and made the breakthrough that was needed. And Maclean's uniquely did 40 pages of coverage of it. So you get to be a fly on the wall and look at what happened, how it happened. And there was also an hour-long public affairs TV program by Canadian TV who videoed the whole thing. So it's a really in-depth delving into the sort of thing you're talking about and the sort of thing I'm talking about, because if you'd gotten those 12 people together and not had an adequate quote-unquote container for their interactions, it would have just been a mess.
And Kathy is bringing us back to the very practical information she had shared about the possibility of using the industrial waste of the hemp plant as a building material, which is super important that we have housing in this world, and way too many people without housing. And I am really glad to be learning about this. I had not known that hemp waste could be used as something to build houses with. So thank you, Kathy, for adding that information into the chat.
And there's community land trusts, because not just houses do we need, but land to put the houses on. And having communities that collectively own the land, rather than all it being privately owned or publicly owned by the government, but actually having land that is owned by the community, which is being experimented with here in Eugene, Oregon, as well as other places.
So I want to suggest that we could still have a 15-minute breakout group. There were some people who put in the chat earlier that they would appreciate the opportunity to have a conversation in a smaller group. So I would like to ask now, is there a particular topic that has come up that you would like to have an opportunity to delve into further with others who also would like to delve into that specific topic? James.
The North Sea and the idea of legal personhood for rivers.
Legal personhood for rivers. Wonderful. We have a topic. And you would be willing to hold down the fort for a topic on that. Awesome. Very cool. Charles.
I have proposal that I would love to do together with Jerry, and it speaks to one of the things, Jerry, that you brought in, and good to see you, by the way, it's been a while, about getting more voices in a room for conversations, more different kinds of voices. That's a big one, and I would really love to connect more with you, but anyone else as well around that. Yeah.
Okay, so we have a second one. We have legal personhood for rivers, and we have more voices in the room. And is there a third, Lorraine?
Yeah, I'm interested in people's experiences with setting up governance of smaller groups. Like I work with a nonprofit and we are trying to do direct democracy and it's messy. And I'd like to talk with others that have some experience with setting up governance in such situations.
Awesome. That sounds like a great topic. And it's totally fine, this being open space. Even if you've proposed a different topic, you are still welcome to change your mind and go to that topic. Any other topics? And anybody who doesn't want to do a specific topic and just want to hang out in the main room and have a conversation here, you are totally welcome to do that as well. So I'm going to give it another couple minutes, minute or two. Yes, Lorraine. Oh,
sorry, I just forgot to lower my hand.
Alain.
Yes, the role of elders in democracy.
Wonderful. Role of elders in democracy.
Specific role of elders. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, awesome.
You know, this is Kathy, and I'm interested in a worldwide networks being set up to provide housing for everybody, and also through contacting lottery winners in every country to get them in on supporting local bioregionally adapted cultivars for growing. I put the liberatedsalad.org.com in the chat.
Awesome.
Yeah, so food and energy, shelter, self-reliance, and economic self-reliance. Yeah.
Okay, well, I've written it down as housing for everyone, but we can understand that it's more inclusive than that. So not to rush us, but given the time factor and wanting to make sure that we have enough time in this, we have 5 groups. Is there legal personhood, more voices in the room, setting up governance of smaller groups, specific role of elders in democracy, and housing and general needs for everyone, and a general group. So I am opening all the rooms, and I can still add another one if people feel the need for having another group. But otherwise, you are now empowered to, and the way that you do it is you have to go to breakout groups, and it's oftentimes under more. And if you need any help, we can just tell us what group you would like to be placed in, and we can place you in it.
Pretty amazing in that regard.
Yeah, well, welcome back, everyone. Again, just curious, thumbs up, sideways, or down. How was your small group experience? Woo, woo, okay. People had lovely conversations, it looks like. I want to ask a favor of you. Would you be willing to just write a sentence or two, either in the chat or on the Google Doc, about, I was in this group and this was something that I valued about it, because we would like to be able to compile those in the Google Doc. So much appreciated. And we will send you an email afterwards with a link to the Google Doc, and yeah, just a reminder. So one of the, in closing, because we are going to need to close, what we usually do is we usually have a soft close, so people who want to stay on for a little longer can do that. But we also really want to honor people's time. So we want to have a formal closure, and then staying on is totally optional. So I do have a short announcement to make, and then we'll just close with like a word from each person. Our short announcement is that we are entering our end of the year fundraising session, and whatever you might choose to offer is most welcome, whether it's a financial contribution or a few words about the value that CII's work has for you, or as I said earlier, just even a note about what happened in your small group, because that enriches our documentation so that then we can show people that people actually do have good conversations when they come and join our events. Or, you know, your good thoughts and prayers, or any leads to potential funders, any and all of it will be most welcome. Tom will be sending out fundraising appeals to his list, and we as CII will be highlighting the fundraiser in our messages to the CII newsletter. And we're part of a larger whole, so it all goes into one pot. So that's pretty much it, except that Andy, if you could please put the link in the chat in case anybody wants to have it now, but we will also be sending it out afterwards, so no rush on that. So yeah, it was just a few minutes to close. Last word, if you would like to offer a word about what you're leaving with, and then pick the next person. And who would like to start us off? Yes, Jerry.
Hope. And off to Joyce.
Gratitude.
And if you could pick the next person, Joyce.
Elaine. Is that right?
Yes, Alain, it's fine. Gratitude too. Thank you. Mm-hmm. And I picked Tom.
Oh, fun. I'll pick Jerry.
Did you say me? Because I started.
Yes.
I was the first to go.
Oh, you were. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
Kalia.
Appreciative. Joyce.
He's already gone as well.
Dana.
Yeah, inspiration. And let's go to Lorraine and Patty. I get 2 for 1.
Paradoxical logic from my hopelessly philosophical viewpoint.
New questions.
Ooh, new questions. Wow.
Andy.
Andy.
2 words: celebrating community.
Reorientation of mineral, vegetable, and animal kingdoms as outlined by Brother Philip in the 50s in the book called The Secret of the Andes, where the feminine order would reorient the abuse of mineral, vegetable, and animal kingdoms.
Oh, thank you, Kathy. And who are you choosing to go next? Kathy, would you choose someone to go next?
Oh, I don't know who hasn't spoken, so they could just speak up on their own.
Okay, raise your hands if you haven't spoken. Okay, so I'm going to pick Lorraine.
Okay. Just gratitude, deep gratitude. And I pass it on to James.
Collaboration.
Collaboration, yay.
Atlee.
Creative imagination.
Woo, creative imagination. Anyone else who hasn't gone? Ying, are you with us?
Oh, Yin.
Yeah. Anchoring and rebalancing. And Charles, I think. Yeah.
Collective will.
Anchoring, rebalancing, and what was the last one?
Collective will. I was just going to say will, but others used more than one word, so I couldn't say collective.
Oh, you passed it to Charles, who said collective will. Awesome. Thank you. All right. I think I'm the only one who hasn't gone. Is that true? I'm going to say thank you for making this a wonderful call. Super gratitude. Yeah.
Rosa.
Alrighty.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom and Andy and Rosa. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, very much.
Andy, did you get a chance to give a word?
I did, yeah.
Oh, you did. Okay. Hard to keep track sometimes of who's got it and who hasn't. Well, stay if you will. Go if you must. Hail and farewell, and merry meet and merry part and merry meet again.